Welcome to Talk It Out with me, Jingjing. This show always tries to show you the different voices from China and the whole global South. Especially the voices and stories are often being neglected by the Western mainstream media. I'm very honored that joining me today is this gentleman. His name is Kwesi Pratt, and he's from Ghana, and he's also the founder of Pan Africa Television. So welcome to China, Mr. Pratt.
Thank you very much.
And you know what? You gave an amazing speech at the forum for the whole Global South. And I always try to understand different perspectives, different cultures by traveling to different countries and also talking to the local people from different countries, different continents. And sometimes when I talk to people from different African countries, it's shocking to me that, for example, most people know coffee beans from different African countries, but you cannot find the best coffee beans, best coffees when you actually go to Kenya, because all the beans being taken to other countries. Africa has cocoa beans, but you cannot find the best chocolate in Africa. And I remember a speech by one of the amazing women from Africa. She said, when she was giving this speech to a bunch of European audiences, she said, "It's unfair. How can you take all the gold from our continents, but your currency worth way much more than our currencies? You take the gold from us." And you mentioned that in your speech as well, how Africa, the whole continent, is still being exploited by this so-called New World Order. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us more about that? I'm sure most people are still so ignorant about the whole African continent that they don't even realize.
Well, that's the paradox of Africa. I mean, Africa is by far the richest continent on earth. Africa practically has everything. Intelligent human beings, strong human beings. We have many rivers crisscrossing the continent. We have diamond, we have gold, we have bauxite, we have oil, we have gas, we have uranium, lithium, everything. Dense forests. We are surrounded by the sea and so on. And Africa is such a beautiful place. And yet the African people are so very poor. Our poverty and underdevelopment in part can be explained by our history. We were enslaved. We went through the transatlantic slave trade, where our people were captured as beasts of burden and made to work for hundreds of years without pay. And the people who were captured by these European adventurers were largely the best on our continent. The young ones, the architects, the doctors, the engineers, and so on. These were the people from our continent who were captured in their millions to work the fields in North America, to work the fields in the Caribbean, to work the fields in Europe, in order to create the basis for the development of Western capitalism. So this is the paradox. Now, we also went into a period of classical colonialism. And under classical colonialism, we were even denied the right to choose our own leaders. The head of state of Ghana, for example, was the Queen of England. The Queen of England appointed all public officials, and we had no say in that. Now, we waged a relentless and courageous struggle against colonialism, and we won the battle against colonialism with the help of our friends. And our friends included China. Our friends included the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and so on. And eventually, we won the battle against classical colonialism. But we are still not free, because we have entered a new era of neocolonialism, where colonialism has managed to wear disguises. It is disguised, but our resources are still exploited and owned. First of all, they are owned by the giant multinational corporations of the West, from the colonial metropolis, and they're exploited not for the benefit of our people, but they're exploited in order to enlarge the bank accounts of the multinational corporations. And this is the African paradox.
I'm wondering, what's your thought on this China China-Africa relations, and what's the difference between China's relations with Africa and the West's relation with Africa?
Every Chinese leader that I've known, that I've listened to and read, has emphasized the point that China is building its society based on the aspirations of its own people. And every Chinese leader that I've listened to and read, from Chairman Mao to President Xi, they have said that the Chinese model is not a model which should be copied. So China is not imposing its model on us. Of course, China is doing things which can provide inspiration for us. China is doing things which can show us that there's another way and so on. But China has never insisted that any country, any people should copy its model. It's also important to make the point that throughout our history, China has never dropped bombs on us. All the bombs that have been dropped on us, all the guns which have been pointed at us, and which have killed our people, are guns from the West. The bombs have come from the West. They have not come from China. Indeed, throughout our history, our people have never been slaves to China. China never enslaved us. China didn't colonize us. China always stood on our side as a friend. We struggled against apartheid, and apartheid is the worst form of racism. Who were the people who supported the apartheid regime? Which institutions supported the apartheid regime? It was the Western institutions. Non-governmental organizations from the West, the Western military establishment, the Western intelligence services and so on, supported apartheid. We were supported by China. So China throughout history has been a friend that does not impose its will on our people. There is talk of the possibility of China assuming the role that the Western powers have assumed. That possibility does not exist. It's different. Again, it's important to recognize that China is not holding guns to our heads and telling us that if you need assistance from me, you have to have this kind of government or that kind of government. The West insists that if you want to deal with them, you need to have a certain kind of government. They even go to the extent of determining who should be our leaders even today. On February 24, 1966, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America overthrew the Nkrumah government. They actually organized the overthrow of the most prominent leader of the African people. They killed Patrice Lumumba. French, Belgium, and other Western intelligence services came together and they killed Patrice Lumumba. They dissolved his body in acid and took out his front teeth as souvenir. This barbarism has never been exhibited by China. Today, everywhere in Africa, everywhere in the world, the West is bombing democracy into our people and destroying what used to be paradise. They bombed Libya. They destroyed Libya. They killed Gaddafi. And today there is total chaos in Libya. You understand? So this is the difference between the Western approach to developing relationships with us and the Chinese approach to developing relationship with us. They come with sanctions and injunctions. You do this or we sanction you. You do this or we bomb you, and so on. That has been the relationship. That relationship must change, and we will definitely ensure that that relationship changes. Because that relationship is not in our interest, and that relationship cannot contribute to the building of a new world without a bomb. To the building of a new world in which we all see ourselves as equal partners in the preservation of life. We will change that relationship.